maybe your top foods that people should definitely be avoiding if they want to help their gut be healthier, what would those foods be?
Yeah, I mean, definitely it's really simple, right? We tend to complicate it. It's simple. Sugar, right? Because sugar is going to feed dysbiosis, it's going to feed, all kinds of, not just feeding the bacteria, but sugar is going to drive insulin resistance. And that insulin resistance causes all kinds of inflammatory issue and metabolic syndrome. And that inflammatory process then will start to disrupt not only the gut microbiome, but cause systemic inflammation. So sugar is a big one. And basically any type of processed food, chemically laden food, artificial sweeteners, right? So it's more about whole, fresh, prepared food, right? Because if you eat anything that's packaged, that's processed in some way, then that potentially can lead to a problem, right? Now, interestingly, we say, for the gut and microbiome, we always say, oh, gluten for sure causes problem. Actually, it's a double-edged sword, right? It's two sides to the coin because gluten is known to cause intestinal permeability, leaky gut. And gluten in people who are sensitive can definitely cause a lot of issues, food reactions, inflammation, autoimmunity. But gluten is also one of the large contributor of fiber in the Western diet. Okay, so there's benefit to gluten. It's not all bad, but for people who is bad for it, then it's really bad, right? So it's like almost like there's always, pros and cons to both, but the con of gluten may outweigh the pros for many people. So it's kind of like gluten actually can help the microbiome because of the fiber content. But could you get fiber from somewhere else besides gluten? Yeah, you don't have to get stuck with gluten. There's many other food that have fiber. So why not just cut out the gluten for the bad effects of it and replace the fiber from something else? So dairy, can be a problem for some people. But again, food is a very individualized thing, right? Not everybody have big problem with dairy. Not everybody have big symptoms with gluten, although gluten we know universally causes leaky gut, like universally, just because the structure of gluten basically it's almost like a toxin that that's gluten protein.
It basically creates little micro tears inside, right?
It
Inside the
does because the reason it creates micro tear because gluten basically the body sees it as a toxin. That's what it is. Again, there's good parts to gluten, but the gluten protein for the human body it sees it as a toxin, so therefore it creates leaky gut. So it creates leaky gut in every single person. That doesn't mean every single person develop symptoms, but it may develop problems down the line from the chronic inflammatory issue from leaky gut, therefore leading to heart disease or arthritis in some people. So they eat gluten, my tummy feels fine. I don't have a problem with gluten. No, you have a problem with gluten because it's causing you heart disease and causing you arthritis, right? So
I want to reiterate that for a second because I've had this conversation with people who don't make that connection. And I say, they say, oh, I don't have any problem with gluten. I say, why do you say that? They say, oh, just like you said, oh, because, I eat it and I feel fine. And I say, but you have arthritis. Did you realize that maybe your arthritis is related to gluten? No, how's that possible, right? Like they don't even recognize that gluten or some other potential allergen, food allergen, can actually show up in the body as some other dysfunction, like pain in the joints, like arthritis, or like you said, heart disease. And so recognizing what are these allergens, getting tested, finding out if you are sensitive to these things, and then removing them from your diet, I think is number one, right? It's like, we've got to test and find out. I've eaten corn for years, didn't think I had problems with corn, did some testing, and realized some symptoms I was having in the past were most likely corn related because this came back as a corn allergy, right? And so it's like, I never would have known that had I tested for it. And I think that's so super important.
and that's part of that brain immune gut connection that I talk about in the beginning of this call, right? Because when you eat something, the gut, right? It's not really even the gut. When you react to corn or wheat, it's not a gut problem. It's an immune system problem. It's your immune system that's developing antibody to these foods. It's your immune system, the dendritic cells that are picking up these proteins and then they're presenting it to your lymph nodes and the T and B cells to make antibody. So there's this whole orchestration that's really, really complicated, but really beautiful too, that I'm actually, developing another immune masterclass just to talk about these things. But the point is that the symptom from eating something that you're sensitive to is not a tummy problem necessarily. It could be, but oftentimes it's not.
We hope you enjoyed this short excerpt from the Health and Healing Club. This entire video, including an in-depth discussion and thoughtful and inspiring questions and answers, is available inside the Health and Healing Club, along with hundreds of hours of premium and exclusive life-changing content, practices, and holistic, natural, and integrative solutions for health and healing. You can start your free trial today at healthandhealingclub.com.